Parallels are everywhere in manga and anime. Some are more obvious than others, but they all exist nonetheless. They serve the purpose of adding depth to each individual character, and it makes you appreciate them more. Jujutsu Kaisen is no stranger to the concept of parallels, and it does them extremely well. Itadori and Geto, Toji and Maki, and Yuta and Gojo. But in my eyes there's a parallel that stands above the rest, both in terms of enjoyment and writing, and that's the parallel between the peak of sorcerers, Gojo Satoru, and the peak of humanity, Toji Fushiguro. I'm going to go over the individual character of Gojo first, and then Toji, while talking about their similarities, differences, as well as their general dynamic. Gojo is one of, if not the most complex character in the entire series. When I was first introduced to him, I got the impression that he was just going to have a role as a two-dimensional, flawless, overpowered teacher, but I couldn't be further from the truth. Throughout the series, from the dialogue of other characters as well as his own actions, we quickly learn that Gojo is strong. He's the pinnacle of strength within the current Jujutsu world, and his confidence and abilities make him pretty much invincible. While he's portrayed to be this insurmountable symbol of perfection, if you look deeper it just isn't true, at least looking at Gojo internally. From when he was young, it seemed like he gauged people's worth based on how strong they are, and because of that it had negative implications on his ability to build relationships with people that he didn't deem strong. From birth, all Gojo has known is strength, and that's his main motif as a character, though as Gojo's story developed, his arrogant mindset shifted upon the loss of those who were important to him. I think that Riko's death played a very large part in the beginning of Gojo's mental turmoil. Despite thinking he was the absolute strongest, him losing resulted in Riko dying. Even after attaining unparalleled power through Hollow Purple, he still seems extremely visibly shaken, to a point where he's willing to massacre all the non-sorcerers celebrating Riko's death. With this event, the gap between Gojo and his best friend Geto became more apparent. Geto was the only person that Gojo truly considered a friend and was the closest to his equal. Geto saw Gojo for more than his strength, he saw him as an actual person rather than a symbol of power which the rest of the world saw him as. The conversation here between Gojo and Geto shows us that Geto was beginning to see him as an object of power, and the question of are you the strongest because you're Gojo Satoru, or are you Gojo Satoru because you're the strongest, was the final nail in the coffin. At this point, Gojo realized that strength wasn't everything, despite every event in his life giving him this belief. After this, he had no one to call a friend, and simply put, he was lonely. I do believe that there is significance to the names and natures of his curse technique in relation to his personality. Take Infinity for example. At a surface level, if something attempts to touch Gojo, it will instead hit the infinity between himself and them, meaning that he cannot be touched. Infinity pushes everyone away apart from those he accepts himself physically. It can be interpreted as Gojo isolating himself from the world because of his strength, or vice versa. Abilities and techniques are inherited from your clan, and members of the Gojo clan have utilized Infinity before, and because of this there's a possibility that his mental turmoil may be intrinsic. Usually curse techniques have some relation to the personality of their users. Take Hikari for example. If we assume that the first person who manifested Infinity was at least as strong as Gojo, their Infinity may have developed because of their subconsciousness pushing other people away due to the user's strength, and as it is passed down, it could perhaps be seen as a form of generational trauma. Toji is arguably one of the most important characters in the entire series. His existence alone seemed to change the entire Jujutsu world, and already you may see a parallel between the two. Toji, the man cursed by the heavens and chained to earth, and then Gojo, the man blessed by the heavens and cursed energy, who can be likened to a walking god on earth. There's a large difference there, but the two characters are relatively similar in their large theme of overwhelming power. I'll talk about this further in detail later, but the duality between Gojo's I alone am the honored one panel and the panel of Toji's appearance in Shibuya is absolutely beautiful. It represents the imbalance between humanity and sorcerers and points out the societal injustice within the world. Gojo is pointing down, taking a godlike stance due to being blessed by the heavens with his strength, and Toji is rising from the bottom and overcoming negative stigmas with his strength. Both of them are two sides of the same coin, one side being infinity and the other being zero. Gojo is the symbol of infinity. This is because of the six eyes being omnipresent in the world no matter what, the name of his ability, the permanence and significance of his clan to the Jujutsu world, as well as his seemingly infinite store of cursed energy. Toji is the antithesis of this, being zero. Him being cast out of his clan, not having any worldly possessions, portrayed as unlucky, as well as him being the only person with zero cursed energy and cursed techniques. Zero and infinity are, well, infinitely apart looking at a numerical scale. But looking at it from another perspective, you can say that out of all numerals, they're the most similar solely because they're so far removed from everything else. Infinity being Gojo and his strength, and the numerals being other sorcerers. Toji's also far removed from the other sorcerers partly due to his strength, but I think it's more so because of the heavenly restriction placed upon him that makes him so different from the other sorcerers in the world. While it's made out to seem like Gojo is blessed and Toji is cursed, I think that it could be seen as the inverse depending on how you look at it. Being a Jujutsu sorcerer in and of itself can be seen as a curse, and I think Geto is a good example of this. You have to go through the long process of exercising, as well as having to go through the risk that comes with it. It's normal to experience loss as a sorcerer, but you still have to keep moving forwards in the world and kill curses, because that's your job. There's also a parallel of their purposes in the world. Toji's existence is a complete and total anomaly, as said by Tengen. It seems like he was born to usher change, and it's clear that he fulfilled his purpose. And then you have Gojo. Like I said earlier, the 6 eyes are related to permeance and omnipresence. Biologically, it seems like Gojo is supposed to be an anchor within the Jujutsu world, something that brings balance. But psychologically, he wants to usher change and talks about how he wants to raise a new generation of Jujutsu sorcerers to surpass him. Despite Toji being a depiction of a mistake, he's simply a victim of the Jujutsu society, and I think that Gojo realized this. And he's a significant reason as to why Gojo wants to tear down the societal standards that the Jujutsu higher-ups hold. Like I said earlier, I wanted to explain the panel further. Throughout heaven and earth, I alone am the honored one is a quote from Buddha and a reference to the journey of the West. The word Satoru means enlightenment, and because of his strength, he's the closest figure in the Jujutsu universe there is to a god, and Toji calls those who can't use cursed energy monkeys, including himself. As he's the strongest of all quote-unquote monkeys, he's akin to Sun Wukong, the Monkey King. This is further reinforced during Toji's final monologue as he dies. His death by the hands of Gojo symbolizes his enlightenment. This may be a reach, but I noticed something when Gojo and Toji met for the first time. Toji stated that when looking for Gojo as a kid, he's the first and last person to ever notice him standing behind them, and I think this has more meaning after reading the whole fight. Toji's someone who's been casted out and been refused acknowledgement from those with a position of power in the Jujutsu world. The only person to actually acknowledge him both in and out of combat is Gojo, and I think that Gojo going all out is a form of acknowledgement due to the realization of Toji and humanity's strength. Like I said earlier, there are so many beautiful parallels in the series, but personally this one takes the cake, and hopefully this video changed your mind. If you'd like to see me talk about more parallels, then leave a comment down below, and as always, thank you for watching and have a nice day.